El Señor se preguntó el qué haría si un día su familia no le hablara.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the hour. You are listening to WSUM 91.7 FM Madison at 11 a.m. The opinions expressed on the show do not reflect the views of WSUM, University of Wisconsin-Madison, or its Board of Regents. And this is Untold Stories with Alyssa and Tiffany.
If you are new and listening to our show for the first time, Untold Stories is all about giving people, especially students, a platform to share their experiences and stories with others.
Today is our last show of the semester, and I don't know, I feel kind of sad that it's the last show. I don't know why, just because, you know, summer's coming, but then next year we're going to start again, but it's just... There are some things we'll debrief about later in the show, but we had a very good semester with topics that we discussed, guests that we had on air. And today we actually have Shiroz Tarania, and she's a second-year student. She'll share a little bit more about herself in just a second here, but she'll be sharing some of her art with us today on air, some spoken word, which is very exciting. This is the first time we're having a spoken word artist come on air today. And the second half of the show, so for the last 15 or 20 minutes, we will debrief about the semester, about Untold Stories, our favorite and least favorite shows, and how we could do better and things like that. So Shiroz, why don't you say hello and introduce yourself and give us some background about, you know, where you came from and stuff.
Well, thank you, first of all, Tiffany and Alyssa, for having me. This is a super big honor to be on the show. Well, my name is Shiroz, and I am a sophomore at UW-Madison, and I'm studying nursing. I actually find out if I get into nursing in 2 weeks, so hopefully that works out. It's been a long road, so hopefully it works out in the next 2 weeks. I'm originally from Chicago. Anyone listening from Chicago, that'd be awesome. So North Side. And basically, I am a Muslim American woman. And that kind of started my journey in poetry. I started off just writing poetry, but that ended up becoming spoken word and kind of performing it. And so I've got the honor to perform at a bunch of events on campus. And that's just turned into a huge thing. And it's become something that not only I do for fun, but something that I'm super passionate about.
That's awesome, and we're going to actually share how we have like a quick funny story. So Tiffany actually reached out to Shiroz on Facebook, was it?
Yeah,
okay.
Facebook.
Yeah, and then Tiffany, you know, came back to me and was like, oh yeah, so this is our guest speaker for the week, and I'm like, I know Shiroz. We didn't go to the same high school in Chicago, but we were in the same summer program, the Collegiate Scholars Program at the University of Chicago. So that's where we met, and I think our parents worked together, right?
Yeah.
So my mom,
Oh,
I think my mom's listening. So if there are any Chicago listeners out there, thanks for listening in onto Untold Stories. Shout out, Mom, if you're listening. I don't know. I'm gonna shout out to you later. I tried calling her and she didn't pick up. Like I called her 3 times. But anyways, let's just kind of have an icebreaker, just because it's been a very stressful week for a lot of students around the United States and also UW-Madison because it's final season. So we're crashing. At least I'm crashing, and it's really, we're hitting the wall. But how is everyone doing? And whether you want to rant about final season or whatever you have going on, I think this is a great time to kind of like let that out.
Yeah, I actually just had an exam yesterday, and it was like the first thing I did in the morning. I had a 9:30 a.m. class, and that's when I took my exam, which is just like, I don't even want to think about it. Yeah. And then right after that, like on the same day, evening, we had like a pitch meeting for it. One of my journalism classes, so that was fun. We didn't win, but it's a good experience.
Who won? I know what you're talking about. It's for the campaign booklets.
Yeah. I don't know if you know anyone there, but but like one of the group got like the students' favorite, also the judges' favorite, so they got double extra points.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Sad.
Shiroz, how are you doing?
We're grinding. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah,
we're just grinding.
We're
We're trying to get the semester done. We're trying to finish strong. It's just crazy how fast like the time flies. Like I'm gonna be a junior. Yeah, I don't know about a lot of people. like my friends, they're like seniors, they're graduating, and they're just like senioritis for them is real.
Yeah.
But I'm at the point of like sophomore-itis, if that's a thing as well. Just kind of
Sophomore-itis?
yeah,
Too
I think
early.
it's a thing. I think it's a thing because that's like the end of being like an underclassman. Then you're gonna be an upperclassman, you know. So I feel like the wheels have changed a little bit. But yeah, hopefully it all ends well, and good luck for anyone who has finals out there. You too. Good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, for me, I'm doing okay. Like I think we're all the students are feeling just sort of this sense of stress, and final season is literally here and exams have started, and next week is full launch of that. I haven't gotten a lot of rest in the past few days. I went to bed at around 5:30 a.m. for the past 2 nights. Not last night, luckily. That was my day to like just crash and rest, just because I had an essay due and procrastination, but also like just trying to formulate my thoughts. It was a paper that's more like a literary analysis paper versus one where like I'm used to writing journalism pieces, which are short quotes, things like that. So I actually had to like dive into the text and share my opinion, which in journalism, like when you're writing pieces for that, you can't. So it was like a struggle to be like, oh, this is what I think and this is how I'm going to prove my argument. But yeah, so I'm kind of tired, but I'm feeling super energetic that this is the last show, and just being excited for the semester to be over and for summer plans.
Retweet, yes.
Yes. But yeah, let's transition into our discussion about how's your college life at UW-Madison? You said that, it's been 2 years so far. You're like, how did you decide nursing, right? So I'm throwing it all out there about like
College life.
your college life, and we can go in depth about that as well.
So, like I mentioned before, I'm from Chicago, and so I actually signed early decision with UW-Madison because of the posse program. So I'm a proud posse scholar from Chicago, Chicago 16. I think my posse's listening out there, so shout out to you guys. And I decided on UW-Madison because I really wanted to, get out of Chicago and like kind of put myself in a field that I wasn't going to in the first place. So I chose nursing because I'm super passionate about healthcare disparities. A lot of the work that I do like at UW is around like social justice work. So like being part of like the multicultural nurse organization or doing research on healthcare disparities within dementia are things I'm super passionate about. And so you might be thinking, how does that like fit into like poetry, right? Like, how do you fit that into healthcare? Well, one of the things that I'm really passionate about is how to bring those two together, because a form of art, any form of poetry, I think is a way of like healing. And I feel like as a nurse, I want to heal. And so I want to find ways to kind of like bridge those two together. So a lot of the times I get like, what are you like, my parents especially are like, do you just do spoken word, or like, do you do healthcare? Like, what are you doing? Right. And I'm just like, I feel like you have to explore your options and you have to do everything that you're passionate about. So along with nursing, super excited for where the spoken word journey is going to take me as well. Yeah. So
I just want to clarify, you've been writing poetry since when?
Since actually sophomore year of high school. Oh, and wow. What ended up happening was, I don't know if anyone's, I feel like you guys can relate as a freshman coming to like, I'm first gen too. So coming to a school that like kind of pushed my boundaries a lot, like I kind of lost that side of myself. And just recently, I actually got back into writing. I actually performed my first piece at a retreat, and it was a posse retreat, actually. Mm-hmm. And at the retreat, I was writing this piece, and I was like, I want to share it, because as we know, our political climate isn't the best right now. But I wanted to find ways to kind of make awareness about what Muslims go through, what my experiences are, and put that into writing. And so I ended up writing again this previous past year, actually, and I started performing, and I got such a beautiful response where I was invited back to multiple events at UW. So I was like, you know what, we're gonna keep going with this. We're not gonna let this passion go. So it took a break for a year with writing and performing, and then I'm back again, and I'm super excited to continue.
That's awesome. Can you share a little bit more about some of the topics that you sort of write about, where you gain inspiration, or if it's primarily based on maybe your experiences or what you witness? Just kind of debriefing us a little bit about about that. Sorry.
That's okay. A lot of my writing, a lot of my poetry is my experience. So I don't speak for anybody. I speak for myself. But I do know a lot of the times I do resonate with people who do listen to me. A lot of my writing has to do with being particularly a Muslim in America. And I think for me, that's a vast distinction of being a Muslim elsewhere. And a lot of the times my writing is about awareness and it's about unity. You know, a share that I will share is about what happened in New Zealand. And so for me, there are these experiences that have had a direct impact on me and like my people and the oppression that we face as a group. A lot of my writing isn't about, I don't know, it's not about blame. It's not about like hate, or it's not about like trying to pin something on someone else, you know? It's kind of more about, hey, look, like this is what's happening in our country. This is what my experiences are, and this is what I want to share with you. And a lot of it's just really me just finding to place my feelings in a form of art, and I chose writing, you know. And so for me, that's something that helps me get out of bed and kind of make me feel like that I have a voice. You know, I kind of found my voice within doing poetry, because sometimes when you're a group that's kind of oppressed, you kind of just feel like you're voiceless, right? But I feel like through this, I speak behalf of myself, but with the response that I've gotten, I know that I'm not alone. And I think that's the best response to ever get to anything that you do. Yeah.
I have two questions. One, do you think spoken word can be seen as a form of protest? And second question, how do you think writing, but in general, what you do in terms of spoken word is a healing process?
I think for me, the first question with the protest, yes, because when there is a protest, there is resistance, right? And one of the ways that I've gotten resistance is actually through my parents. So it's really funny because I'm super passionate about spreading this, right? But a lot of people don't know, but you know, as a Muslim woman, like, you don't want to be going out and telling everybody that you are a Muslim, right? And so my parents have actually been super like, why are you doing this, right? Because they're actually afraid of like my safety, or like of the things that I'm saying can be controversial. And because in forms of protest, in forms of other ways to fight oppression, there's always some sort of resistance that you'll face. And so for me, it's my way to kind of speak out against that resistance, because to me, I've decided I don't want to be silent anymore. You know, I want to continue this journey and to be a voice and to represent. Because honestly, how many Muslims can you count that actually do poetry, that actually do spoken word? I can't. On campus, I've only met probably two, you know, including myself, so one, right? So there's not that many. And so for me, it's definitely about representation, and it's definitely about doing something that's new. And to me, it's also kind of making it fun, because I actually enjoy writing it. So I think for me, I hit two birds with one stone as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess before you answer Alyssa's second question, I just want to say, because like a few weeks ago, which was at APITA and AASU's
Can you let people know what
gala.
APITA is?
Oh, so wait, it's really long. So Asian Pacific Islander does the American Cultural Center and Asian American Student Union. They had a celebration and gala, and they invited Churros to perform, and I was there too. And I just thought that like the entire performance, like I could feel that it's definitely a form of protest, I would say, but like it's also just Churros sharing her own experience. Like in a sense, it's like just telling you how like these are real people going through real thing. They're like, this is a real experience, but people should know about them, because I feel like a lot of times like mainstream media don't cover this, or they only cover like one side of the story. And yeah, I just think like the whole piece that the performance that I watched was very empowering.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah.
So
Alyssa,
going back to healing.
Yeah.
Do you think you can repeat your second question for me again?
Yeah. So my second question was, you know, like you said earlier, it's kind of a healing process for you in terms of writing, but also spoken word. So can you elaborate more on how that is a healing process and what that sort of looks like, what emotions you go through when you're writing? Because, you know, I've seen spoken word a few times on campus and also like in high school, and it can get very emotional. And you know, the people listening, if they can connect to it or not, you know, people are snapping and they're showing their support, and you see some people who shed some tears and relate to that experience. And just talking more about, as a writer, as a performer, as an artist, how is that healing, but also how can that be healing for an audience?
For me, it really takes a lot of vulnerability to allow myself to go on a stage and go on a platform and share my story. When I write pieces, a lot of it, so like my journey has become just talking about myself and my own experiences, and then going to relate to events that have happened in my life in the community and kind of reflecting on that. I remember when I performed at the APITA Gala, actually, mind you, all the performances that I do, it's not just in Muslim communities. A lot of the performances that I've done have been in Asian American communities, in Latinx communities, in African American communities. And these are people that want to hear my story, because, you know, at the end of the day, we all share something in common. You know, we all are sharing this pain and this grief. That's what's happening in our country. And what's happening with us is that we're just forgetting about it. You know, we're not understanding each other as different POC communities, you know, as different communities on campus. I feel like we all need to hear each other's stories. And so I remember at the PETA Gala, I was just expecting, you know, my fellow, you know, South Asian sisters to come up to me, right? But honestly, the response was amazing. Like, honestly, it was the best audience I've had, because you know what I realized? My poetry isn't just for the Muslim community. It's for literally anybody who has gone through a struggle of not feeling like they belong in their own community, feeling like they don't belong in an American community, that don't belong in general, and that just feel like they're a group that just doesn't have a voice. Because at the APITA Gala, a young lady came up to me and she actually hugged me, and she was of Asian American descent, not South Asian, and she came up to me and hugged me and was tearing up because my story connected with her. And this story was about my own struggles with being a Pakistani American, of a child of Pakistani immigrants. And to have that said to you from someone else from a different community just empowered me even more, because then I knew that it's not just about us versus them, it's about us all together. And for me, that's when I realized that I have to put my vulnerabilities aside and I have to use my voice, and I don't want to say talent, but my willpower, and my willpower to write and to move it forward and pass it on. Yeah. So for me, it was just an awesome experience, and I'm continue to heal from a lot of the issues that we face, as not just as a Muslim woman, but as different communities face different forms of oppression. Because I feel like in the future, my writing is going to evolve with not just talking about my own experiences, but talking about my experience in America in general, growing up in Chicago in general, coming to UW-Madison in general, because again, that's a huge culture shock too, you know. And so definitely on campus, I always fear performing, because you never know who's listening to you. You know, you never know what response you're going to get. You never know what criticism you're going to get. But for me, it just pushes me on forward, and I want to continue to do it.
Yeah, I love spoken word. Like, I don't have the ability. Like, I write. Like, I love to write. Clearly I'm a journalist or an aspiring journalist, and then that's obviously a different form from compared to spoken word and poetry and things like that. But I write in my free time, and I journal and just my feelings and things like that. But I don't have the ability to just kind of make it flow well. And every time I hear other people's stories, and when they're performing or having friends just say, hey, I have this piece, can you listen and give me feedback? I'm like, that's awesome. Beautiful. Like, this is literally, you can put this in an art gallery and just have the words on, you know, not a portrait, but, you know, on the wall or something.
Yeah.
And it can resonate with a lot of people, just how powerful words can be.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I said, I've seen performances here at UW, at Shannon Hall, Memorial Union, Union South, things like that. And it's just crazy how it can move an audience just in a short amount of time, because some pieces are very short. You know, you have pieces that are 90 seconds to some that take longer forms, but the fact that it can just move people so quickly within the short amount of time shows how powerful words can be and impactful that it can be. I saw this post that you made on your social media and how you said your journey with spoken word has been beautiful and bold, and it's allowed you to sort of accept your Muslim identity and just kind of to speak out about injustices and marginalized communities. And you said something about how you're excited to see where this journey will take you.
Yeah.
But can you tell us more about where you see this journey for spoken word, for art, for speaking out, going?
I think one of the things that I want to do is definitely spread anywhere that I can at UW-Madison, right? Take my poetry anywhere here. But one of the things that I'm really striving to do is, and I usually don't, this is the first time that I actually posted on social media of a spoken word that I did, and the one thing that I don't really do is kind of post, just because of the fact that I don't know who's listening and if people are actually interested, but it turns out people are. And so what I really want to do with it is I want to turn it into a platform of a spoken word journey for me on campus. There's a really cool organization called Melanin Speaking, and it's a super cool organization where it allows students of color to kind of go out and spread their own wisdom in spoken word. And so I definitely want to expand out not just from UW-Madison, expand from UW-Madison to other communities as well. So whether it be going back to Chicago and performing at events there, which I will be doing actually coming up soon. And then eventually I want to speak directly to a Muslim community as well. Because one of the things, surprisingly, it's so funny. I've performed, like I mentioned before, in so many different communities, but not directly in my own Muslim community, where the whole audience is Muslim, And I have Muslim friends who, are just like, you should come and you should perform and do this and that. And I'm like, yes, tell me when, right? And for me, it's really about kind of using my platform and my voice to kind of spread it even more and kind of opening up my horizons and being open to anywhere, if there's a gig happening somewhere else, me wanting to be there and me hoping that someone's listening and someone who I can connect with as well. And so hopefully my journey with spoken word, goes far, because my last performance was actually at the Apita Gala, and then Tiffany contacted me, and then you contacted me, and I was literally, honestly, swear to God, I was thinking 2 days ago before you guys contacted me, where do I want to go with this? What do I want to do? It's really hard when you're also a STEM major, and then you have to balance this out with your passions, which is this art form. So for me, it's also just kind of figuring out, how do I want to put this in perspective for other people in my own nursing career, and so hopefully figure it out soon. But I just know for a fact, and I'm so passionate about that, I want to continue this, and I want to take this far and wide and all over the world, and that's my goal.
Write a book.
We're gonna write a memoir. We're gonna do something.
Yeah. No, I think I just had a question in my mind about. Let me think a little bit about what you just said, because that was very powerful.
Yeah.
Here we go. Yes, I got it. So, you're doing nursing, you're doing something within STEM. And a lot of people, when they choose their career paths or, they are set on what they want to do, it's very hard to incorporate things that are outside of what they're doing. So I don't know if you guys see memes on Facebook or whatever, and you know how they're like, oh, STEM majors, they think that they have it so hard, but then they don't know how it's hard for humanities majors or history majors or whatever it is. But the fact that you're able to incorporate, STEM
worlds.
exactly within writing and creativity, and you're able to spark that. I feel like a lot of people don't do that.
And I think it's so unfair. I see that a lot. The divide on the campus, it's kind of a lot just STEM versus the arts, Yeah. And that's definitely not how it should be at all. Because if we really think about it, I feel like art is a form of patience and hard work as much as STEM is, And because if you're in STEM, you're passionate about what you're doing. If you're doing art, you're passionate about what you're doing, right? So it's honestly about the passion. And I see those memes and I laugh at them. I don't like them because I don't agree with them. Just because I know so many talented people who are in the arts, who are doing or getting a liberal arts education, but they're striving so much harder. They just have a different outlook and a different perspective. And you can't ignore those perspectives that happen in art, because they just have a different way of looking looking at things. As a STEM major, I know sometimes I want to see the world as black and white, you know, but I think nursing's interesting because you can't really see the world as black and white. You know, you have to incorporate other perspectives, other ideas into your fields because you're working with a vast majority of people, you know, who won't all just be STEM majors. They're also going to be some humanities major that because it's such an interprofessional field that I think it's super interesting where we just talk about interprofessionalism, especially in nursing, of just being like doctors or pharmacists. But I can guarantee when I go out there, we're going to find someone who's also another one who's a spoken artist as well, you know? And so it's just, I think that's the beauty of it. And that's what I want to strive to do is that, you know, if you're passionate about something, you can make it work and you can definitely strive for it. And I'm passionate about nursing and spoken word, and I'm going to make sure to keep on doing it. Yeah.
Integrate both of them. Yeah, because I think for me, you know, being a journalism major, not having to really deal with math or science.
Yeah.
God bless.
So this semester, I'm going to digress a little bit off of the subject that we're talking about currently. Kind of relates, but, you know, I'm taking this astronomy course this semester, and I hope my professor isn't listening, but I do not like that course. Like, it's great with the knowledge that we learn and the material that he teaches. He's a great professor, right? But at the same time, it's just when you know you don't like something or that you're like, oh, this isn't really related to what I want to do. It's like, why am I here? But at the same time, you have to take it because, you know, credits, requirements for graduation, things like that. And I'm just kind of like, I don't get this material. And even if I work outside of that and reach out to my professor during office hours or my TA or whatever, I just feel like I still don't get certain things. Like if I have to apply a formula about planetary motion or something, I'm like, I don't do this. Like I haven't worked with math since like high school, and I'm back in college as a junior having to deal with these problems, and it makes me feel bad sometimes as, you know, as a student, because you're in the classroom and you have people that are math majors or computer science majors, right, like within STEM, and they get it. They're sitting in class and they're participating and they're answering the questions, and I'm like sitting here and I'm like, I don't get this material, and I feel dumb. But I was thinking about it, and I was talking to one of my advisors, and, you know, he was telling me it's not, yeah, you know, you might feel this way in class, but at the same time, that doesn't show who you are as a person or represent who you are as a person, because you have your strengths and others have their strengths. So if you tell a STEM major, like, I don't know, read this novel, analyze it, and write an essay about it, they might have a lot of trouble. Like they might have a difficulty trying to do that. So I don't know. It just kind of like what you said resonated with me in a way where like the divide of STEM, but also like incorporating other things and doing other things like art, and having that balance and having that flexibility to do other things and not just kind of one thing. Right. And then knowing where your strengths are and your weaknesses and maybe working on those. I don't know. We're working more on your strengths. And going on this topic, I remember I read an article where it was saying how in high school or in middle school, you know, all students have to learn different subjects, right? There's not like, oh, if I want to do math, I take a ton of math courses. No, that's not the case. In high school and middle school curriculum, it's like you take everything, which is great because you get a lot of exposure as a young student, but then you start realizing throughout time that some students are doing well in math and science and some are doing well in like the literature and the arts and things like that, but they don't have the ability to sort of grow on that strength until later in life, right? Or like in college, and maybe not, because they're like, oh, I have to do math or do something in STEM because that's where the money's at, right? Because that's what people think about.
And that's the last thing anyone should do if they want to like go into STEM, is worry about the money, you know. And I'm a key believer in whatever you do, you have to be passionate about it, or else you're never going to be happy, you know. And I think the stuff you say, it's super important that we understand that, like, I feel like at the end of the day, we're all in this struggle together, right? Especially if we're at UW-Madison, these classes are hard. Things are difficult. We're all in this struggle together. So I think at the end of the day, your STEM, your art, help each other out, you know, and, you know, good luck in your class because you said agronomy?
Astronomy.
Astronomy.
Yeah.
Okay. Even that class. Oh, yeah. Good luck. You got this. It's hard, but you'll eventually make it through.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I was just going to say that I honestly accepted a B in the class because
they get degrees because it happens.
Because the thing is, you know, I was talking to my English professor the other day, or Asian American Studies professor, and we were talking because the grading scale is very different in this class. There's no like A, B, 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 C. It's literally A, B, C, D, F. So that's why I was like, wow, I'm just really gonna it's not horrible. It's not an F in the class, but it's like not what I wanted because everyone wants to strive for the A,
Right.
but at the same time, I was like, I didn't do too well on my final exam, and I was like, I'm just gonna accept a B in this class because it is what it is, and you can't get an A on it all, right? And I did try my hardest for the course. So,
Yeah.
but Tiffany, what were you saying?
No, I feel like it's not just on like the personal level, like about like your own passion as well. I feel like because I was like talking about this with a friend, and we were just talking about how like even in the professional realm, like how these two should be more connected. Because I talked to like one of the alumni, and she actually graduated from the J school, but she's a software engineer now with like text and stuff. So like, because she thinks that in journalism there's like a lot more things that has to do with like comp sci that people need to know more about. I don't know. I feel like the same way with STEM too. It's just like nursing or doctor or anything. I feel like if they don't really know about like the humanities side, like it's really hard to like connect with people and things like that.
Yeah. That's a solid point
Yeah.
because one of the things I definitely see in like specifically nursing is like, yeah, you get the science, you get the body, but do you know how to talk to people? Do you know how to like resonate with people? Do you know how to take care of people's needs? Because honestly, a lot of the times in hospital settings, like we forget these people are humans, right? They're humans first, and then that's not like the science comes after, but like we need to know how to talk to each other. And I feel like in this day and age, we forget how to talk to each other as well. And so definitely that's a solid point too, because that's where you probably see the two combining as well, and that's another thing too. So yeah, all my STEM majors, all my art majors, they're awesome. So I think that's one of the things that as a campus and as students on this campus, we need to strive to do better.
Yeah. That was a great conversation. I think with that being said, we can transition and have Sharoz share some of her art pieces with us. Some of her, I think you said two, was it?
Two, yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
So take your time. If you need a few seconds to pull it up or get in your zone, whatever it is. We're very excited. I don't know why I can't speak today. Jesus, I'm like messing up all my words. I guess I'm nervous because it's the last show. But I'm very excited. We're all excited to hear your art. So whenever you're ready, take it away.
Yeah, thank you. So, this first piece that I have written, it's about my experience. It's kind of shorter than what I usually write because it's still in the process and still developing. And that's one of the things I do with my art. I feel like it's not one spoken word and it's done, but it's constantly like revamping and redrafting and going back to it. So this piece is about, as we all know, hopefully, what happened in New Zealand. And to me, that was kind of a turning point in my own life because this was kind of something that directly impacted me because coming onto this community, I know people who, have families in, because it's such a big campus, you find people who are connected to somebody in New Zealand, right? So for me, just having that connection and to me just spoke volume to me. So this is my first piece, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Inna ilahi wa inna ilahi rajiun. 50 lives taken by the senseless act of genocide as they kneel to the ground for prayer, but they instead were shot with a flare. Hailed from Afghanistan and Pakistan, they traveled oceans to build a start in an unknown home. They struggled with language and culture, but so soon, unknown to them, they were taken away from their own land by a vile vulture, and they're the same ones who ask, aren't Muslims terrorists? And I say, no, my friend, the truth is masked behind all the media and stereotypes. I hear the snickers and jokes from 9/11. There's some misconception. Now I have a confession. I don't use any weapons. Mukhad Ibrahim, God's love and peace, a 3-year-old boy who oozed the purity of youth, but he will not live to see the sun's hues. I say, inna ilahi wa inna ilahi rajiun. Husna Ahmed, paving the way to safety for others while she bled. Oh, she bled from a pellet. But the souls she saved far outweighed the gunners' hateful rhetoric. We see, but we forget. We feel, but we heal. Remember Mukhad, hear Husna, and keep the voiceless in your minds, because trust humankind will shine from darkness. I say, Inna ilahi wa inna ilahi rahjun. Now you say, Inna ilahi wa inna ilahi rahjun. And we will say, we belong to love, and to love we will return. Inna ilahi wa inna ilahi Rajun. The second piece that I have is my experience of being a Pakistani American. And a lot of my pieces obviously have encompassed my own experiences of being Muslim, being American, being Pakistani. But a lot of the times I've failed to find where I belong in this community, you know, whether if I'm too American enough, if I'm not too Muslim enough, I'm not too Pakistani enough, you know? And I feel like it's not just, I feel like in a lot of ways we all can resonate to that, because we find ourselves always battling identities, you know, where we belong. And so hopefully you enjoyed this piece as well. Let me paint you a picture of the unheard when the land of the free became August 14th. No longer in chains as we rep the white and green that washes away our pains from the partition of 1947, where we finally created our own heaven. Islamabad, the city of Islam, Karachi, the haven for refugees. It is the soil. It is the soil my father escaped for some toil, as my mother followed blind to love as she married. But oh, she misses where her mother is buried. Haven't been since I was 7. Where are you from? Ask heaven, my skin cold as what rolls off my tongue. America. America. I was afraid of exile, but you know, he only smiles. The whispers of the wind cast as I search for a feather of acceptance, as I have to react and face my own vengeance. Pakistani or American, choose. American or Pakistani, choose. I sit and think as I watch the headlines on TV, as I suffocate and freeze, as I pretend to be a shadow in defeat. Seeing the world believes we are some disease is believing seen, or seen believing airtight, as the colors of blood finally run dry, as the sun willows, the air finally releases, and I face peace, and the words are exhumed on a new moon, as my truth echoes. I am from the land of Pakistan, not from the land of the Taliban. He makes me feel small as he asks me again, as he withdraws. But you know, this time I only smile. I only smile as the world stands for a while colorless, because he's mad at my melanin. But to him and them I say with elegance, I am a Pakistani American. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, those are the two. Thank you. Those are the two pieces that I have for you today. Though I feel like those are two pieces that I resonated with myself as being Pakistani American, being Muslim, but also just kind of giving a tribute to the lives that were lost in New Zealand and to anyone else who were affected by the tragedy, to kind of speak up again, like I mentioned, for the voiceless.
I just want to give some snaps really quick, because that's what you do in spoken word.
Yeah.
Just
So I
because
was like,
just because when you're I know like when people are performing, that's what drives and gives energy to the artist, just by snapping with things that resonate with you, with things that are very powerful. You snap, right, to show support. So I couldn't do that. I didn't want to interrupt on airs, but I was snapping here while you were performing. But yes, thank you for sharing that. I know it, can be very vulnerable for you to share that experience and, your belonging and trying to find a sense of community. But did you name those pieces at all? I don't know if you gave them a title.
Yes. So one of the things that I try to do is I do name pieces. But so the first one was called The Shots Fired. But the second one, I didn't want to name it anything specifically because I feel like I wanted to leave it endless, and I wanted to make it something that doesn't have to be defined by a name, it could be just something. But yeah.
So yeah, thank you for sharing that piece. So we're just going to transition a little bit and talk a little bit, since we don't have much time, just what you want to do, what you're doing over the summer, what do you hope to do in the future, and what you're sort of excited about.
Yeah. So what I'm doing over the summer being here, I'm actually doing an internship at the hospital, at UW Hospital, for my nursing degree, hopefully. But one of the things that I'm going to also strive to do is make more poetry, obviously. And I'm actually performing at 2 different places in Chicago. So that'll be fun. But if anyone wants to, keep track of, what I'm doing and kind of just something that I said resonated with you, I'm making, like I mentioned before, I want to make a huge platform and to kind of develop my platform. So if you want, you could follow me on Insta. It's just basically my name, Sherose, SHEHROSE 18. And I am I love to share, and I hope to continue to share this summer and keep going on with the journey ahead. But yeah.
And then, you hear back from nursing in 2 weeks.
2 weeks, y'all, and I'll let you guys know what happens. So let's put our hands together and pray. And
that's like, it's crazy how like throughout our life we have to wait for decisions, like for high school, for college, and then when you apply for different programs and internships, it's just a very nerve-wracking process. So
but we got this.
Yes, we do. We got this.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're gonna just transition. We're gonna take a quick break, and then for the last 15 minutes of the show, we're gonna debrief about Untold Stories and everything that's been going on. But stay tuned. Thank you so much.
Interested in hearing more live sessions like this?
Hello, this is Cole Brandt, and this is my top stream song this summer called After Hours. I hope you enjoy it.
Follow us on SoundCloud at www.soundcloud.com/WSUM to hear sports broadcasts, live in-studio sessions, podcasts, artist interviews, and more. Only on WSUM.
Hey, can I get a mic check?
Check 1 2, mic check 1 2, mic check 1 2, mic.
Microphone check 1 2.
At WSUM, we don't just broadcast traditional music shows. We also air live music programming. Can I get some bass? Every Friday from 3 to 5 p.m., Live at WSUM brings in local, up-and-coming acts into the WSUM studios to perform live over the airwaves. Okay, how about electric guitar? Acoustic guitar? With the variety of musicians we bring in, who knows? You may hear the next big band before they garner national attention. And finally, let's hear the drums. In a band and want in? Email WSUM's music director at music@wsum.wisc.edu to book your band for the next edition of Live at WSUM. Live at WSUM, plugged into local music and on air, here at WSUM 91.7 FM, Madison.
Welcome back to Untold Stories, WSUM 91.7 FM Madison. Thanks for sticking with us in the first part of the show. We actually had Sherose Tarania on air. She's a second-year student at UW-Madison, majoring in nursing. And she actually talked to us about her identity as a Muslim American and just shared 2 pieces of spoken word with us. And we talked a lot, so I'm just kind of simplifying that. But yeah, so now for the last 10, 13 minutes or so, we're going to debrief about Untold Stories. If you've been listening, it's our last show of the semester. It's kind of bittersweet just because, I'm not graduating or anything. We're not graduating, but the fact that it's the semester's almost over and, finals are almost over, it's kind of, kicking in. So it's bittersweet. But Tiffany, what do you want to talk about in terms of like what your favorite or least favorite shows have been, how you've seen the show, and how it's grown so far?
I feel like because this show is still relatively young, I feel like, compared to a lot of other shows, because we just started 2 semesters ago, so it's been almost a year. And I feel like a lot of times, like me and Alyssa, because we have excuse me, similar interests and like similar passions, and we always invite people who are willing to share, and most of them are, like, a lot of the times they're usually, students of color sharing their own experience on campus. And I feel like for the second semester we've grown so much. Like, we've invited a lot of people that we didn't think we would talk to. Like, I just feel like, at least me personally, I feel like I wouldn't normally go out and talk to these people and meet these people, but then throughout the semester we've talked to Hmong American queer, which is super interesting, like the intersections and everything, intersectionalities and everything. And then we talked about sexual assault on campus. A girl who's a sexual assault survivor started an organization on UW-Madison, wanting to help a lot of survivors with dogs and cats, with like animals. And this one, I feel like it's the most special one because we've never had a performer on our show, like performing on air. So that was really interesting, and I feel like this is something we could do more moving forward. So yeah, that's like my kind of long debrief on like our show for this year. How about you?
Yeah, so for me, starting Untold Stories last semester we started, and just kind of looking at the very beginning of it all, I was rusty, man. People start somewhere, right? Like, we all, like, for the beginning, I was like, oh, man, like, I was very excited. I was a sophomore, and I'm just kind of like, we're live on air. People are actually listening to us and giving feedback to our show. And kind of being a second year, no, not a second year, a third year student now. Gosh, I'm mixing up all the timeline. But just sort of being here and having over, I think, 26 shows now we've had live. And so I kind of got used to it, and it's been a lot easier to sort of transition and have conversations. And I'm really glad that the guests feel that way when they're on air sharing their story, at how easy it is for them to just kind of share what they want to share. And, I think a few of my favorite shows this semester have been, when we had Sammy Michaels on air and she shared her story about being a sexual assault survivor. Sorry, that wasn't right. But, starting the organization Survivor's Best Friend. And we had Chu Feng on air as well. Shout out to you if you're listening. But he shared his story on being a queer Hmong American, like Tiffany was saying, and that was very powerful. So we had a lot of great speakers. We had people from the CHASA, Chinese American Student Association, share sort of what the significance of Chinese New Year celebration is and why people celebrate it. We had people from the Black History Month Planning Committee share as well, and they debriefed about the month and how it went, events that were successful, events that they really enjoyed. So they talked about Angela Davis, who came to campus, and she's like, I think she's a CNN correspondent. She talks about politics and debates and things like that. So it was just, we had a lot of diverse stories on air, and I'm very proud of that. And if you're listening and you've been on the show or you want to be on the show, whatever it is, Untold Stories wouldn't be possible without all of our guests, right? It's Untold Stories for a reason. Like, we're here to learn about people's experiences and what they go through, and whatever they want to share, we want to give that platform to them. And I think it's been a very humble experience having that opportunity to give people that platform, and very thankful as well for WSUM for providing those resources and all of the material and equipment that we need so that people who are listening can have that ability, and for people who need to share that their story have that platform. And so it's been crazy at how many people we've had on air. Like I said, we have 26 shows, on our list that we've completed that are live, and that's like 26 guests, on air sharing their stories and kind of making an impact to someone or whoever might be listening. And that's, I don't know, I think that makes me very happy, and just something I definitely want to keep continue to do as a journalist or as a student, whatever it may be, just some form of allowing people to share their story with others. And
Yeah.
that's why we're Untold
Yeah.
Stories for a
I
reason.
know. That's what I want to respond to. Like the name of the show, like it's literally called like Untold Stories, because like I feel like the stories that I've heard throughout this year at WSUM and like on the show, like I don't think I could get any of these on mainstream media. Like you can't get people's like personal life, personal experience, because these are all like marginalized group, like are marginalized stories and experiences. So having this platform for students at UW-Madison to be able to share like their vulnerabilities, like stories, like I really appreciate that. At least like from a selfish standpoint, like I learned a lot from like these 26 people. So
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think I definitely learned a lot too. And like what you were saying, how we're giving voices to people that are on, that have these stories that people don't think about.
yeah.
You don't hear these stories on every day,
Mhm.
right? Because there's so many people in this world and there's so many things
Yeah.
that are going on that we don't ever really stop to listen or to look around or to just, there's someone sitting on the street and you're like, hey, what are you going through? Like,
Yeah.
my friend actually, just to digress a little bit, last night my friend asked me a question and said, if you could have any measurement that you can see on top of someone's head,
Mhm.
like what kind of measurement would it be? And so an example would be, you can have a measurement to see someone's lifespan, like how long they have to live. Or there's like a measurement of someone's weight or something, or how much money they have, or, so there's so many different things that you can measure. And so like, what's one thing that you personally would want to see? And I think my response was someone's like level of happiness. And it's on a scale of like 0 to 100, 0 being, sad, obviously, or like depressed or whatever, and then 100 being super happy. And that can change too with what's going on in the current moment. If someone, got accepted to their dream school and they're feeling on a level 100, but then you might have other people who are at 0 and they're facing personal issues or whatever it may be. So that's what I said. And I don't know why I went on that tangent, but I thought it'd be, we don't know what people are going through. And so that's why I thought it'd be interesting to have that scale to say, if someone's at a 10, just kind of like, why are you feeling the way you do? And if you're feeling 100, like, why are you feling 100? And how can people feel like you, or something like that. So that's what I said. And that's why I plugged that in there if you're listening. But yeah, that's kind of Untold Stories for y'all. We're so thankful for our listeners, people who just tune in here and there, or people who are actually consistent in listening to Untold Stories, because there's no way of us knowing who listens to us. But it's bizarre how far we've come. And again, thank you so much to our guests for sharing their stories with us and with our listeners. It's been a fun time, and Untold Stories would not be possible without all of you. So thank you so much. And if you're new and listening, or if you're a consistent listener, we always end our shows on takeaways. So we'll have Sharose join us back on air to share her takeaway as well. But Tiffany, do you want to share a takeaway first?
My takeaway, I guess I'll combine from what we just debrief about like this entire year, and as well as like Sharo's story. I guess like overall, because it's really hard for us to get to know each other on like a really personal level, and there are like so many stories out there that's still waiting for us to discover. So I think just having an open mind, and also know how to use our quote unquote weapon / voice to voice our opinions, because you're healing yourself, but you never know you're healing someone else too.
Yeah. I mean, this is a super cool platform. Like, that's the first thing I'm going to tell you guys. Like, having a platform like this called Untold Stories, and to have students on and to, like, be able to share, it's just, I don't think the impact is huge, for me, like, especially, being a Muslim woman, like, I feel like I don't really get the chance, besides my poetry, to, like, really talk about my background and where I'm from. And I feel like once you put all that together, you're like, wow, I would have never thought, And so for me, I'm super thankful to be part, like, on this show today. And I really hope that Untold Stories continues, and that it's something that gets into something broader, just becomes a huge thing, because we do need stories like this in mainstream media as well. And I think that's a number one thing that I would love for this to go. But yeah, thank you for having me again.
Yeah, thank you.
you.
But what's your takeaway in general from, like, what I know you've been talking all this time, but just sort of advice that you have, or something you want our listeners to take away?
I think one of the things that like what we talked about was it's just like the divide between like STEM and art. And I think for me, definitely it's about just pursuing what you love and what you're passionate about. Because I think at the end of the day, like if you're happy, I'm happy. Like you just mentioned, like the level of happiness. I think people will be happy as long as they do what they love. And I think that's guaranteed. You know, if we spend little time worrying about the money, but spend more time thinking about ourselves and our own care for our own selves. But yeah.
Thank you. And then
Your takeaway.
my takeaway, let's see. I kind of want to, there's a lot of things that we've talked about today. It's hard to kind of sum up it all in one. And I feel like I definitely repeat a lot of my takeaways on the show just because I'm so consistent with my thoughts. But I think something that my journalism professor shared with me is just take the time to stop and look out. And what that means is sort of a lot of the times we're so consumed in what we're personally doing, like we're literally attached to our phones, you know, and we're just always looking at what's going on there. And we never look around and stop and kind of just see what's going on beyond us. So my takeaway is just to stop, breathe, and, you know, look out, essentially, if that makes sense. And yeah, we got this. So if you're a student or you're an adult or whatever you are, just keep going, keep grinding. You got this. And the takeaway we always end on is take it one step at a time and appreciate every moment. Time is precious. It's not something you can get back. So make the most out of the time you have right now. Thank you so much again. And we hope to come back next semester strong with Untold Stories. So again, thanks for listening to Untold Stories with Alyssa
And Tiffany.
Bye.
Bye.
Jag börjar själv kanske. 1, 2, 3.
My one heart wouldn't know there's only one that can be enough. Can you give me just enough?